one by one. Okay, things to remember in online learning for PE. First is physical activity is self-motivated. It is always. Data privacy. You have to protect yourself. Human-to-human relationship. We are not robot. We are the same teacher that you had before. Okay? We are the teacher still with the heart to teach. Okay? And then, physical activities with proper guidance. All your physical activities being executed should be guided. First, to avoid injury. Second, to execute advanced skills. Next, importance of physical education and health amidst pandemic. We can optimize health through doing physical activities or physical education. And then digital citizenships. So those are the things that we have to remember in doing online learning for PE. So now, let's proceed with the online learning modalities. So when we say online learning modalities, this is the way how the teacher will deliver the curriculum or their particular lesson. And also, this is the way how you guys will learn. Okay? So this is all about the modalities for teaching for learning process. Now, the first thing that we have to remember or under this particular modalities is the synchronous learning. Maybe some of you already heard about this. So when we say synchronous online learning, it is also possible in physical education. Okay? The teacher and students all interact online at the same time. So the learning in this particular modality is synchronous. Okay? So sabay-sabay tayo natututo, sabay-sabay natin ginagawa ang mga bagay-bagay. Okay, this is done either through text, video, or audio chat. So later you will see what are those learning platforms that we can use for online learning which focuses on synchronous way of delivering the lesson. The assignments are to be completed by specified due dates through message boards, modules, quizzes, and or the other online delivery method. So, tatandaan nyo lang sa synchronous learning, sabay-sabay tayong natututos. Ang teacher nagtuturo, tapos kayo, nakikinig. Okay? Yan, sabay-sabay tayo. We can interact with each other because we are learning at the same time. Okay? Yan. So that is the synchronous online learning. The asynchronous or independent learning or self-paced is kabaliktaran ng synchronous. The students are given the assignment and information through online delivery and are expected to complete the assignment by the due date. It is very self-directed. It is very self-paced or independent. These are those this is the way of learning where you guys can view or execute or do those things which the teacher is asking you to do. Okay, this is done at students' own pace. Kaya, halimbawa, I uploaded some learning materials in our Google Classroom. Then, there are some instructions for you on how to do that. Okay, so, kahit anong oras nyo siya gawin within the week, as long as you can submit it on my specified date. So that's how asynchronous learning works. Next, modular instruction. Based on what I remember in college physical education, we are not going to have modular instruction, just synchronous and asynchronous learning. Okay? But anyway, let me discuss to you what is modular instruction. So, this uses modules either prepared by the teacher or adopted from a source. Pwede yung teacher niya gumawa ng module or it was adopted in a particular reliable source. Okay, so, in physical education, it is also possible to have modular learning for the theories. But for the particular, what they call this? Application of the skills which we are being discussed, always remember that you can only prove that you perform that particular activities if you have a recorded video. Maybe you can submit the recorded video or just a time lapse on how you executed those skills. As defined, modules is a form of individualized instruction that allows students to use a self-contained package of learning activities. Again, it is individualized instruction. In creating modules, hindi po totoo ang one size fits all. Okay? Hindi yan totoo. Okay? You have to know your students. As the number one rule in education, you have to know your students. Okay? Their background. That's why in creating learning plan, we have to state the background of the learners, right? And how interactive or not interactive the discussion is, maybe in online setting or in physical setting. Further, a learning module contains activities intended to help students understand certain lessons. So, yan. So anyway, we're not going to use this in college physical education courses or subjects. We're just going to use the synchronous and asynchronous. But anyway, there's another way of delivering the lesson online, which is the hybrid or blended learning. Last semester, we did the blended learning because for the prelims to midterms or the start to midterms, we had the face-to-face discussion. But from after the midterms, up to the end, we had the online learning. So what made it blended learning is because first we had our physical lessons, or we had the face-to-face lessons or discussion, and then we just continued it through an online learning because of the pandemic. So in this particular setting, students learn and interact both in person and online. So those four are just parts of those online learning modalities. So first, again, synchronous, where the students and the teacher are synchronously learning. Okay, asynchronous, self-based. So you can view the material or study the material in your own pace as long as you can submit it on the deadline assigned by the teacher. For the modular instruction, my module and hybrid learning, combination of face-to-face and what they call this online learning. But again, we are just going to use the synchronous online learning and asynchronous online learning in this semester. Okay? Yeah. And so now let's proceed with the online platforms to use in physical education and health course. So these are the learning platforms that we are going to use for us to deliver the lesson and for you to learn. Okay? So I prepared here something which I call as Physical Education in Health Starter Pack. So I call it as a platform pyramid, just like the food pyramid, diba? We have to consume majority of those elements on the bottom part. So do not be overwhelmed the way I presented the online platforms because we are not going to use everything that was presented here. I just presented it just to prove to you that we are ready. Okay, we are ready in this particular setup of learning or in these modalities. Okay, so just like the food pyramid, we have to consume those elements on the bottom part. We have the Google Classroom, Google Meet, Google Forms, CISO, Padlet, and YouTube. Okay, so Physical Education in Health Starter Pack. I call this Physical Education in Health Starter Pack because a certain physical education teacher should know these things. Or this is the platforms that we can use to effectively deliver the curriculum in physical education or the lessons in the physical education. Okay, are you ready? So yeah, so we have the Google Classroom, Google Meet, Google Forms, CISO, Padlet, YouTube, Schoology, Office 365, Mentimeter, G Suite, iMovie, Slido, Flipgrid, Edpuzzle, PE Geek, Open, which stands for Online Physical Education Network, and Kahoot, which is a game website for you to deliver your lesson. Okay? So now let's proceed to those things that we are just going to use, but don't worry, we are not going to use everything. I just presented it so that we will have a backup or plan B. For example, hindi gumagana or down ang system ng Google Forms. Okay, so we have a quiz and then down ang system. For example lang ha, pero hindi naman ito nangyayari. Pero malay nyo mangyari. Down ang system ng Google Forms. Saan pa tayo pwede mag-quiz? We can have our quiz or examination in Schoology. Okay? For example, Google Meet, down ang system, we can use the Zoom. Okay? Yan. So, for our announcements, we are going to use Google Classroom. Okay? Google Classroom. And in Google Classroom, kompleto na yun, we can have the things that you have to submit and etc. Basta, you have to constantly check your Google Classroom for some announcements. For the recitations, we are going to use Mentimeter and Slido. It is an interactive way of soliciting the audience response. So, don't worry because for the Slido, hindi naman your answer will be presented anonymously. Okay? Yan. So those are the things that we are going to use for recitations, especially for my students. You have to familiarize Mentimeter or Slido. They have the same purpose, but I prefer the Slido because I can create what they call this, an event shortly, or Ganyan. So for summative assessments, we are my priority or the priority of our department in physical education is to use Google Form for summative assessment. The Schoology is just a backup. Okay? Yan. For breakout sessions, for example, your teacher will be asking you especially for synchronous learning, will be asking you to, what do you call this? To brainstorm. Okay? So we can do a brainstorming or breakout session in Google Meet. Yan. So, for asynchronous learning materials, for example, asynchronous, the recorded video of the discussion or the exercises to be executed that was first executed by your teacher, we are going to upload that in Google Classroom. Liwanag? Yan. So for meetings, for synchronous learning, so that we can have a simultaneous or what do you call this? A learning together, or yan, we can have that through Google Meet. So maybe some of you, why sir we cannot use the what do you call this? The Zoom. Zoom is good, but we prefer to use the Google Classroom because my G Suite, and we can just, what do you call this? Create a link or a particular permanent link for our discussion through Google Classroom. Okay, we can generate a link where we can meet. At least it is very user friendly. Next, so the Google Classroom or Seesaw, maybe especially those physical education teachers who are teaching physical education online. Shout out to you guys. We are using Seesaw, but for the sake for the students to what do you call this, to avoid creating a lot of accounts, we can use the Google Classroom where the teacher can create an assignment, and you can upload your recorded video as a response to what is the teacher or the teachers are asking you to submit. Yeah, for fitness journey. So always remember, in PE, fitness journey is very important for us to assure your performance in doing physical activities. Always remember that. For examinations, again, we are going to use Google Form, and in case that the Google Form is not working or down on system, which is bihira lang mangyari, as I mentioned before, we can use the Schoology. And I know that some of you are familiar with that, especially those students who are done taking up some subject in computer studies, because I think they are using Schoology. Yeah, and so those are the things that we can use in delivering physical education online. Okay, so for your questions, just send me a message or just send me an email. Okay, so let's now go back to our objectives if you are able to attain it. First, identify the different points to remember in doing online learning and the different learning modalities. Okay, we are done with that. Positively integrate the different learning platforms in doing online learning class. I expect that you are now going to explore those things that I have been discussed and manipulate different online platforms for physical education. So for now, you can check those online platforms that we can use for online learning. Okay, so thank you so much for listening. So again, this is Jen Michael, DC Pastor. You can call me Sir JM. I am teaching physical education in Ateneo de Naga University, Department of Physical Education under the College of Education. Goodbye and good luck. I know that you are ready with this and the department is ready to deliver our services online. So again, thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Bye-bye.